Hi, my name's Charlie King with Heroic Fatherhood, and welcome to the Mentor's Moment. Here we answer questions asked by real fathers seeking insight, advice, or a new perspective on something they're facing in their lives. In today's question, a dad asks, what are the things that must be done by his son when he takes over his father's business? Oh, this is such a great question. And what it really implies is the intentionality that you're bringing to the table, right? Like the intentionality behind what it's going to look like after you're gone, or if you're a son asking the question, what it's going to look like when you take over. These are really good questions to be asking, and I'm super psyched that you have this sort of forethought to start looking at what it's going to be like. The first thing you have to remember is that you're really taking over somebody else's legacy. Whether you decide to run the business just like the way your father did or change it pretty dramatically, you have to remember that there's a legacy behind the business. Now, this legacy lives for customers, employees, and partners alike. They all have an understanding of the way the business was, depending on the way your father ran it. So you want to make sure to honor that legacy. Now, you may decide to do things dramatically different, but rarely does that have to happen on day one. Very often, if people have been working for a company, especially if they've been working for a company a long time, it's probably because they like the business and they like the job and they probably liked the way that it was run. Now, there may have been some gaps, and sometimes we need to make adjustments as soon as we jump into a business. But remembering the legacy of the business when you take it over is going to be really critical. And as you make changes, you're going to want to make sure to communicate these changes to stakeholders, which are your partners, which are managers, which are employees, and finally, which are customers. And make sure that you're making intentional choices with all the information that you have. It's very common for a new owner to come in and make dramatic changes to a business without understanding why the rhythms, structures, or policies in place were there. They may not know some of the corporate legacy or the corporate history that would inform them about why some decisions were made. The next thing to remember is that some employees are going to have a loyalty to your father that they may not have to you. And just because your father was the one who ran the business before doesn't necessarily mean that the employees are going to transfer that loyalty quickly over to you. This is going to take time. And assuming that it's a successful business, you want to make sure to respect the legacy that your dad created, while at the same time starting to get employees, partners, and stakeholders used to the fact that now you're at the helm. The best thing you can do is come from stewardship. Now, what do I mean by stewardship? This is coming from a place of service, coming from a place of service to customers, stakeholders, and employees. If you come from a place of service, if you make changes, like if you come from there, any changes you make will be intentional, they'll be thought out, and you'll have the language to explain them when people have concerns, questions, or frustrations with the changes that you're making. The next piece is take your time. I know that often when new business owners come in, they want to start ramping things up right away and making the changes they see that will make the biggest difference. But that can be super jarring for employees, customers, and everyone else around you. Take your time. Take one moment at a time. Change only the very critical things that need addressing right away, right away. Leave the others for 6 months, 9 months, or 12 months down the road. There's going to be a time of transition. If your father started the business, he likely is thought of very highly by the employees, and there's going to be a mourning period. Now, we always call it about an adjustment period, and they've got to get used to new structures and a new way of doing business. But frankly, it's a mourning period where they worked under one structure for a long time. It worked for them. They adjusted to it. They may have even liked your dad and had a legacy and a commitment to him. They don't have that for you necessarily. There's going to be a period of time where they need to come to terms with the fact that your father's gone and that you're at the helm now. I suggest creating a timeline for transition. Maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's a year, where you're intentionally going to start rolling out slowly different new products, services, or ways of doing business so that the employees aren't inundated with new things and can start to work their way through the transition as well. And I want you to remember, as you're taking leadership here, your dad may be gone, whether he's retired, he's passed away, or he's just off doing something else, that there's still going to be a space for him because all the employees that are there are still thinking of him from time to time. So Can you take leadership and still hold space for your dad? Can you take leadership and still own the legacy of the business that all these people started working for? If you can do these things from intentionality, from leadership, from service and stewardship, you will have employees who are as dedicated to you as they were to your father, and your business is off to a great start. As always, thanks for asking such great questions and keep them coming. So now I have a question for you. How would you have addressed this dad's issue? Do you have a question you'd like to ask and have us answer it here on the Mentors Moment? If you like this video, consider checking out other questions that I've answered about fatherhood, business, and legacies. And as always, just remember, we become better men by spending time with good men. My name's Charlie King. I'm with Heroic Fatherhood, and this has been the Mentors Moment.